Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
My friends, what is happening in the great state of Minnesota right now is, well, a major concern for people, of course, who live there, for people who believe in law and order, for people who believe in the safety of those who are law enforcement officers. This is reaching a fevered pitch, with some suggesting or calling for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act, some thinking he might do that. This is getting very heated in the state of Minnesota. We'll go through the background as best as I can to kind of explain how we got here and what is going on, what might happen next. That's where we're headed here today. My friends, thank you for joining us on this, a Friday, first full week now behind us in the new year, 2026. It's a pleasure here to have you join us. Thoughts, questions, feedback, all that can be sent to Todd at toddhuffshow.com. And by the way, if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to sign up for our Inner Circle newsletter. It's free to join. There'll be some other things coming through the newsletter as we continue to move full speed ahead here into the new year. But I encourage you to sign up for that if you haven't done so already. It's free, toddhuffshow.com. You can sign up there, my friends. Have some fun in the newsletter as well. Friends, let me ask you something before we get rocking and rolling here. Would you rather take 2 soft gels a day or spend hours in your doctor's office talking about your cholesterol? I know what I would choose, and that's why we have Solti here in the Huff household. Solti is an all-natural, clinically proven dietary supplement that can help you lower cholesterol. In fact, it's done it for lots of people, may be able to do the same thing for you as well. No prescriptions, no doctor visits. Not even a drug. It's just a supplement. All you have to do is take 2 soft gels a day. That's all it takes, my friends, for many Americans to have seen their bad cholesterol levels drop. And let's face it, friends, your family needs you healthy. Your church, your business, your community, and also those of us who are, joined together and having to push back against the insanity from the left that we're talking about here today on the program. So we want you healthy, my friends. Solti.com is where you can go, SOLTEA. Promo code Todd will get you 50% off your first order, free shipping. Nothing to lose, my friends, but high cholesterol points. Solti.com, promo code Todd. That's where you go. All right, so let's set the stage of what's happening in Minnesota, specifically in Minneapolis. So earlier this week, ICE was conducting a raid in South Minneapolis. When they are conducting raids, you've seen this in lots of places, not just in Minneapolis, not just in this case. In fact, I believe this might come as a shock. Of course, it might not as well. But as I was reading and doing my show prep for the day, I believe, here we go. Let me open this article and we'll tell you. This is at townhall.com. Here's how many vehicle ramming incidents ICE has faced in the last year. So ICE is conducting a raid in Minneapolis, and they're blocked by traffic. These are by people call these folks protesters. I have to tell you, protesting is to exercise your right to go into public and public spaces and to express your thoughts, to say your chants, to hold your signs, to make your case. This is what a protest is. You can, the Constitution says that you can petition your government. We just talked about this here in the Huff household with the kids. petition your government for a redress of grievances. You can explain what you're upset with your government about. You can articulate it, and you can say it freely in the streets, whether you're right, wrong, whatever. This is a free speech right, and anybody can have it. So you can protest the fact that there are ICE agents. You can protest that you don't like people being deported from communities who've been here for any length of time, even though they don't have any legal right to be here. You can do all these things. There's nothing that prevents you from doing it. However, it ceases to be a protest once you begin to do things like interfere with the operation itself. This is not a complicated concept. It's not a complicated concept, yet many people intentionally conflate these sides of the issue, I guess, because they like chaos, they like there to be anger, they like there to be a narrative that helps pursue their political agenda. And so this has happened in lots of places. They try to obstruct ICE, they block ICE with their vehicles, and not only that, that's bad enough, but then you cross into an area where people actually are striking ICE agents and CBP agents with their vehicles. In fact, according to reports here, there have been more than, this is at townhall.com, there have been more than 100 vehicular ramming incidents targeting ICE and CBP agents in the last year. More than 100. So this is no longer an issue of what they might do. This is something that has been done. In fact, and again, I'm going to try to be doing multiple things here, set the stage for what happened in this incident. There was a fatal shooting of a woman who was allegedly leading this. Again, it's not a protest, the obstruction of ICE, blocking them, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. She was fatally shot. There's video of this. Based upon reports, allegations, she was shot fatally by ICE agents. Of course, an ICE agent. The media, of course, is trying to portray this as, a rogue ICE agent or whatever the case may be. But there are facts that we have to establish. First of all, this is a tactic that has been used. Vehicles and, of course, just human shields have been used to keep ICE from doing their jobs in, name the state, in any city. They also have started using vehicles, and not only have they used vehicles to interfere with, there have been over 100 cases in the past year of ICE agents being struck by vehicles led by these obstructionists. So, let me read this poll quote from this article in Town Hall. There's a ton of information here. I'm going to try to make it as succinct and keep the narrative here together as we walk through this together. But it says federal immigration officers were injured in St. Paul, Minnesota, after a Cuban illegal alien rammed ICE vehicles and struck agents during a violent encounter. Sunday, ICE officers identified Juan Carlos Rodriguez Romero, an illegal alien from Cuba, as he entered a white SUV near Westminster Street in St. Paul, Minnesota, then conducted a lawful traffic stop on December 21st. When officers ordered Romero to roll down his window, he allegedly refused, prompting warnings they would break it if he continued to disobey lawful commands. Romero drove off and allegedly struck one of the officers while attempting to flee. That's just one example of what's happening. There's another example here, again at the townhall.com. I've got this in the stack of stuff today if you want to read it yourself. On October 5th, an armed woman was arrested after ramming agents in the Chicago area. In Los Angeles, a man is facing prison time after ramming his vehicle into federal law enforcement agents. A man drove his car into the gate of an FBI facility in Pittsburgh in September. Back in November, DHS said ICE and CBP agents were facing an unprecedented surge in vehicle ramming attacks. They've got the statement here. I'm not going to go through this, but the point is to establish that this is now the MO. This is the way that these these obstructionists, these folks who are trying to protect people who are breaking the law, this is what they're doing. Not just blocking them bad enough, but now in multiple cases striking them. So let's now go to Minneapolis here earlier this week. Same sort of situation. There is an ICE raid happening in South Minneapolis, and there are people out in the streets blocking ICE agents with their vehicles. Now, you may have seen video of this as well. So there is a woman in her car who we now know is a 37-year-old woman. She has been shot and killed, allegedly, by ICE. This is, of course, this is, of course, ignited a firestorm here. It's tragic that she was shot. What happened was there's multiple videos of this. It's in a neighborhood. ICE is conducting the raid. She's got the street. She's got her vehicle kind of blocking it, right in the middle. They're telling her to get out of the car. They're telling her, to basically stop trying to impede their operation. And an officer, there's a couple of officers, a couple on the side, and one who's more on the front. And so the front end of her car is up against his midsection, like he's maybe around his upper thigh or midsection. He's kind of over the hood, so to speak, and she hits the gas. And she does veer off. She doesn't drive over him, but he, of course, is at the front of that when it begins to go. He opens fire, allegedly shooting her multiple times. She slumps over. The vehicle goes basically out of control because she's her foot falls on the gas pedal as she ostensibly died immediately, and she crashes into a car and I think maybe a telephone pole. Anyway, that's what happened. Tragic stuff. And there are people who are saying this ICE agent overreacted. Now, you watch the video, you can make the determination yourself. The videos, in fact, are even in the stack of stuff as well. But would it matter to you if I told you, this is at the New York Post, the ICE agent who opened fire on Renee Good, that's the name of the woman who was shot and was struck and killed, was shot and killed by ICE agents. Would it matter to you to know that this ICE agent who fired on Renee Good, was hospitalized by an illegal migrant driver last year? This is according to the New York Post. The ICE agent, the article reads, who opened fire in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was dragged 100 yards by an illegal migrant in Minnesota last June after his arm was trapped inside the vehicle during a traffic stop, the Post can reveal. The attack on the officer, identified in court documents as Jonathan Ross, happened June 17th in Bloomington, Minnesota, exactly a month after embattled Minnesota Governor Tim Walz labeled ICE agents modern-day Gestapo while speaking at a University of Minnesota Law School graduation in May. ICE agents conducted a traffic stop on Roberto Carlos Munoz, a serial illegal immigrant from Guatemala, with a lengthy rap sheet with charges including domestic assault and sex crimes against an underage teenager, according to records. Munoz refused to exit his vehicle when officers approached his car, and Ross broke the back driver's side window in order to open the vehicle from the inside. The suspect then sped away with Ross's arm caught between the seat and the car frame. According to the Justice Department, prosecutors said he was violently dragged more than 100 yards as the suspect weaved back and forth in an attempt to shake him loose from the car. Ross was hospitalized with significant injuries to his arm and hand, requiring 33 stitches, but made a full recovery, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement at the time. So again, this article is in the stack of stuff as well. So you got a perfect storm in a bad way here that's brewing. You have in Minnesota and in other places, but this is happening in Minnesota. You have a governor who is talking about law enforcement officers doing their legal obligations and legal duties and responsibilities. You have law enforcement officers who are being demonized and called things like the modern day Gestapo, like this is Hitler's secret army out there. That's what they want you to believe. And so you have people who hear that and believe that, I guess, that they are the heroes of the story if they oppose these officers, if they, well, use any tool at their disposal to protect the people who, by the way, are here illegally to begin with, that are being deported per the law. This is legal, by the way. What we're doing is simply enforcing the law here. And so you've got a scenario, again, a perfect storm, where people are being encouraged by, in some cases, the governors of the state to fight against the so-called Nazis, the Gestapo, the secret police of Trump, which is ICE agents. Then you have people who hear that messaging, who say, you know what, we're justified to use our vehicles in these scenarios to prevent ICE from doing its job. Basically, anytime ICE conducts an operation, if they find ICE roaming the streets, they show up, they protest, they try to make ICE's job difficult, impossible. They try to give warning and aid and abet those who are in this country illegally. Now they use their vehicles not just to block ICE agents. That's bad enough. That's illegal enough. Now they're using them to actually strike them more than 100 times, according to reports in the past year. Now, on top of that, you've got an ICE agent who's already been victimized in a case where he was approaching someone in a car and he was dragged 100 yards, had to be hospitalized with injuries, 33 stitches. Now you've got him at the front of the car when a woman who's, by the way, according to reports, and I've got sound bites, I'm not sure I'm going to get to any of that. It's in the stack of stuff if you want more of the context, but some of the eyewitnesses say that she was the ringleader, this Ms. Good, the ringleader of this. Again, I don't call it a protest because it's not a protest. It's obstruction of the law. It's physically obstructing law enforcement officers from doing what they are supposed to be doing. And so, again, these folks paint ICE as though they are the Gestapo, and they are painting the people who are obstructing as though they are the modern-day Dietrich Bonhoeffers. And so you've got this perfect storm, and you've got the ICE agent who's already been targeted with this sort of technique, where the vehicle was used as a battering ram to drag him in his case. But vehicles have been used to ram ICE agents. They're well aware of this. He's already gone through something similar. He's at the front of the car. She's not complying with orders. She hits the gas. He's up against the car, and he fires, striking the woman, and she dies from the wounds. So that's what's happening. Now, that's horrific. It's tragic. It's sad. Listen, you know my thoughts on this. No matter who's at fault, clearly, if you look at the evidence here, she has created a very bad situation, and it's certainly justifiable if you put yourself in that officer's position, that ICE agent's position. It's certainly understandable, I should say, and justifiable for him to feel like his life is at jeopardy as he's at the front of the vehicle, as the gas is being pressed, as he's up against the vehicle, opens fire on this. It's tragic. It's a terrible situation to be put in, but that's what happens. So you can look at it yourself. You may have already seen the video. So Trump goes out there, and Trump starts doing what Trump does, which is, according to redstate.com here, torches the left. Trump torches the radical left for inciting anti-ICE violence that led to Minneapolis shooting. And by the way, this is true. The godless radical left has created this narrative that has led to this stuff. I mean, I've given you a little bit of Tim Walz. And Tim Walz, I haven't even scratched the surface on some of the stuff that Tim Walz has said. I've got a soundbite from him again. We'll get to as much of this as we can. Trump says this: I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is what he posted on Truth Social. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seemed to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation, again, this is Trump's post on the Truth Social, is being studied, he said, in its entirety, because the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. Now, this is the truth. I mean, this is what is happening. If you want to talk about the side of lawlessness, it's the side of the people who are doing this, who are targeting law enforcement and ICE agents, who are threatening, assaulting, who are using their vehicles to obstruct what they're trying to do, enforce the law, and in some cases to ram these officers, in more than 100 cases in the past year. He continues here, they are just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate. So the rhetoric is ratcheted up. There's violence in our streets. One side is trying to enforce the law that's on the books. The other side believes that the side enforcing the law is the Gestapo. They believe that because they've been lied to and gaslit and, dare I say, radicalized by the likes of extreme radical leftists like Tim Walz and other lunatics out there who justify this sort of behavior. More to say about this as the program unfolds, but my friends, I am up against a break. Friends, let's talk about something really quickly that is important, though. That is your money. You worked hard for it, but is it working hard for what you believe in? At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that do not align with your faith, your values, and they help create a plan that fits your goals and purpose. The best part is they'll show you how your current investments stack up against your values, to what degree your investments are in alignment with your values. All you have to do is complete a quick and easy assessment at 48financial.com/Todd. By the way, I did this, and it's quick and painless, my friends. 48financial.com/Todd is where you'll go for that assessment. 48 Financial, helping you keep your money aligned with your mission. A timeout here is in order for me, my friends. Sit tight. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Lots to go through here today. I'm going to try to get as much of this in as possible. Again, there's a ton of information out there, and again, we've got an hour here, my friends, on the program, so we can't get to all of it. I've got a lot of stuff at the stack of stuff, which is where we put all of the information about the articles, the topics we discuss on the program, and you can go look at those yourself. There's a lot there today, more than I would say usual, especially just more information that I won't be able to get to concerning the background of this entire situation. So it's at toddhuffshow.com. Just go to the stack. That, by the way, the stack is a hat tip, a head nod to the late, great Rush Limbaugh. He used to call the articles he came prepared to discuss each and every day the stack. And so we've got the stack on our website as well. Each episode of the Toddcast has its own page, so to speak, with links to articles. That's the stack. And it might be a place you want to go today. Anyway, so I'd mentioned here we've got Tim Walz, of course, in the wake of all of this, taking to the podium, making an announcement. Remember, he's still governor. Remember, this is in, I guess, addition to what is happening with all this fraud with the daycare and childcare fraud scandal regarding certain folks in the Somali community and what's going on there. This is different altogether. But again, he has that going on in the background. Now he's going to take to the podium and have some pretty pretty serious words. Listen to what he says. And remember, this is the side that we're supposed to believe. We're supposed to believe if we follow the media's direction. This is the side that's trying to call for calm and peace, and that's on the side of, of decency and on the side of keeping our community safe and so forth, which is absolutely ridiculous to say such a thing, but that's the narrative. And I want you to listen here as Tim Walz takes to the podium and makes some remarks about what happened. Again, what I've been describing and the stories that you've undoubtedly seen or read or heard so far about this. This is what Tim Walz had to say.
And today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear. Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident.
Why is it evident?
But we love this state.
Why is it evident, by the way? Why is it evident that Trump doesn't care about Minnesota when he sends in people to enforce the law? You do understand, Governor Walz, that there have been people who have been harmed, they have been assaulted, they have been sexually abused or raped or murdered by people who are in this country illegally. Now, it's terrible if it doesn't matter where you're from, if you're murdered or, have one of these heinous crimes committed against you. But there is an additional responsibility on the federal government. If someone's not even supposed to be here, if simple enforcement of the law and of our border security would have kept someone from being here that inflicted harm upon a citizen, surely you can see why the federal government would have a vested interest in that. By the way, they're in your state protecting your citizens, which of course is all American citizens as well, but protecting citizens in your state from people who have done heinous things. Now, not every person that is being deported has committed murder or one of these other violent acts, but they don't have to be that in order to be deported. Some of these folks have. Some of these folks are members of gangs. We've gone through all of this, but I would maintain if you cared about the citizens of your state, you would worry about these sorts of things. I would maintain if you were concerned about the people of your state, you would protect their tax dollars much more than you have as the Somali daycare and childcare fraud was happening right under your nose. By the way, another note out there, an audit done in Washington state seems to show that a similar sort of thing was happening in that state. I expect this to have happened in lots of places, maybe not exactly the same every time. But this, again, we went through this yesterday. This is what happens when government thinks it can do everything and it doesn't focus on its core responsibilities, its constitutional responsibilities, instead chasing some utopian dream that turns into a hellish nightmare every time these jokers and clowns get control of the government and try to institute and implement their plans and so forth. But he continues here, Governor Walz does.
We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other.
What does that, I can't even deal with this. It's tearing people apart by enforcing the law. How is it tearing people apart otherwise? People are here in this country illegally. ICE's job is to enforce immigration and customs, right? Their job is to enforce who's supposed to be here and who's not. If enforcing the law is tearing our communities apart, then how in the world are we ever going to have a civil society? This is pure sophistry, Governor Walz, but yet he's not even done with it.
Minnesotans, I say this. I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them.
Who's cannot. Making the show here? None of this it stands 1 degree. It doesn't stand the slightest bit of scrutiny. Who wants the show here? ICE shows up. They're not the ones that are making a spectacle of this. They're not the ones who are screaming in the streets, who are blocking people from going about their day-to-day lives and doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not the ones doing this. They're not the ones calling the people on the other side Gestapo. What in the world is this clown talking about? This is pure and utter sophistry. This cannot be taken seriously. And this dude is the governor of one of the 50, or if you count like Obama did, 57 states in this country. How? How in the world is this even real life? But he continues.
If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully as you always.
And was she? Is it peaceable to block ICE with your vehicle, Governor Walz? Was it peaceable to put the front end of your car against an ICE officer? Is it peaceable to have over 100 vehicle rammings? By the way, some of those in your state, because I read some of those earlier in this program. Is that peaceable, Governor Walz? This is just too much for me to take, my friends. He thinks the people of Minnesota are stupid and have bought the narrative of the radical left hook, line, and sinker. He continues.
We can't give them what they want.
What do they want? They want
the hearts and minds of the people.
They want the people who are here illegally deported, Governor Walz, and that's really what you're against, isn't it? I have a feeling that that's a pretty strong, solid, supporting voting bloc for you and your party. That's what this is ultimately about. They want to remake America, and they think by having people come here illegally that are not interested in assimilating whatsoever, and by the way, sometimes causing chaos. I know it sounds hard to believe, but these lunatics, see, when you create a problem and then you say, I'm the solution to the problem, I'll fix it, then you give yourself some sort of a narrative upon which to run. Of course, they promise all of these things. And all they deliver, my friend, is chaos and disorder and lawlessness and violence. Look at any city in this country. It is a virtual criminal hellhole, at least in parts, because of the way, in part of it's, listen, there's a lot of layers to this. The lack of fathers in the home, the lack of sound moral teaching that many of our young people just never receive, the devaluing of human life, which starts with positions on abortion and so forth. I mean, this goes on, this goes deep, but it's also in part because of the way these knuckleheads and lunatics run our cities. I'll play a little bit more of this.
In the state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this. Please stand with Minneapolis.
We do. We stand on the side of law and order, Governor Walz. This is just pathetic leadership, pathetic governance. This is absolutely, I feel sorry for if you're in Minnesota, I've got in-laws in Minnesota. I feel for you. Not that we've got it all figured out here in Indiana by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll tell you this. This is dangerous. This man and what he's allowed to happen in his state and what he's calling for, which I haven't even gotten to the core of it, is dangerous. Got to take a time out though, my friends. Friends, when you're dealing with discomfort, you're just tired of living off prescriptions, managing side effects, you're not alone. A lot of folks are looking for something natural they can trust. That's why I want you to check out Christopher's Organic Botanicals. It's a family-run natural kratom company rooted in truth, tradition, and transparency. They partner directly with Indonesian farmers. They lab test everything before it reaches your hands. There's no hype, synthetics, no funny business, none of that. Just the real thing done right. And they test their kratom. It's responsibly sourced. The horror stories you hear about kratom are from shady sellers who sell synthetic garbage and who don't want you to be educated on the product. That is not what Christopher's stands for. You can go and start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Use coupon code Todd Huff. You'll save 10%. Visit Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. That's Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. Time out for me, my friends. Back in just a minute. This is a clown show, an absolute, unmitigated clown show in the state of Minnesota. It's happening in other states as well, my friends. I want to play a little bit more of what Governor Walz said at the microphone, talking about this event, talking about Trump, and just the way that he's framed this. He is the problem. If you want to know the problem in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, regarding the chaos, look no further. There's other people to blame, but start by looking in the governor's office. This guy was a half a step away from being our vice president, my friends. What an absolute and unmitigated clown show that's talk about putting people's lives at risk. This dude right here is doing it. Friends, you ever wish you had a whole team to help manage your financial life? That's the beauty of family office services at Full Suite Wealth. Their experienced advisors bring together everything from high-level investment management, private equity, private credit, option strategies, all the way to things like complex legal needs, all customized for you. It's like having a family office just for yourself with people who know your story, who know your goals. If you're serious about planning for the long haul, if you're looking to build your legacy, check them out. Jason and his team will take great care of you. FullSuiteWealth.com is the website. Again, FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy, my friends. Secure your future. I'm going to play more of this so you can get a feel of what the other side's saying.
Know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice.
I bet whatever.
The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message.
I bet.
We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans.
That's right. And the people, by the way, that we're deporting are not Minnesotans. Governor Walz, this is an absolute clown show. This should infuriate anybody who lives in this. Should infuriate anyone who doesn't live in the state of Minnesota. It's a beautiful state, by the way. This clown is driving it headfirst into the ground. I'll let him wrap
Minnesota
up.
will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight.
Oh, my goodness.
We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
All right, that's enough of this stuff. So he's talked about the National Guard. You noticed, hey, the National Guard is ours. These are teachers. These are business owners. These are construction workers or whatever he said. By the way, they're all Minnesotans, right? I'll agree with that. They're all Minnesotans. None of these folks in your National Guard, well, who knows? You might have allowed that as well, but these folks are not illegal aliens. It's so, what's the word I want to use here? It's insulting to your intelligence. Minnesota doesn't want a show. Trump's the one that wants a show. Trump wants this to happen and be done with as efficiently as possible. It's the side of the left that wants this to be a show. So the stage is set here. People on the right, certain conservatives, certain Republicans are saying Trump should invoke the Insurrection Act. All the things that they had been warning about Trump wanting to do by using federal authority. By the way, constitutional authority to stop this sort of lawless behavior. People are calling on Trump to do it. I don't know if he will. I'm sure Trump is absolutely considering this. But the stage is set here, my friends, for a real fight. And, you step back and you say, over what? Over what? ICE is not going into your towns to terrorize your citizens. ICE is going into your cities and towns, our communities, to find people who aren't supposed to be in the country. And the left is willing to fight this at all costs. Because again, this is, I mentioned earlier, this is the primary tool that they used, that they use to help with developing a voter bloc. Whatever they tell you, the number of people who are here illegally who vote, they want you to believe it's zero. It's absolutely not the case. This is part of their strategy. This is absolutely part of their strategy. They also like not having these people assimilate because they hate America as founded. They hate the American culture. In fact, they'll tell us there is no American culture. The only way that we can get culture is if we import it from people who bring their cultures here. Listen, there's things that are good about American culture. There's things that are terrible about American culture. But there is an American culture. Make no mistake about it. But they want to see that fundamentally change. They hate the grounds, the foundations upon which this nation was built. The Constitution, they are at odds with it. They want power. The Constitution limits that power. The Constitution empowers the citizen. They hate that. They hate that it's built and predicated upon Western ideals, upon Christian teaching, biblical teaching. They hate that that's in our culture, in our society, because at the core, the radical left, I call them the godless radical left for a reason. They are at war, ultimately. They have set themselves up as direct enemies of God and of truth. That is on display for all the world to see here, my friends. But I've got to go. Out of time. Have a wonderful weekend. SDG.